Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the bottom line. It is that time of year, Ben. This is officially wild card round episode. I can't believe it's already
Yeah,
here, man. I can't believe it's already playoff time, bro. The season has come and gone in the blink of an eye. But I'll tell you what, Ben, it's not just football we're talking about on the pro level. College
yeah,
football, my boys did it. The Wolverines, champions of the college football playoff. Feels good. We got NBA talk. This is the most action-packed episode of the year by far. By far.
yeah. It's the best time of the year, arguably for sports. It's kind of that in between where you still get a lot of different leagues in season with the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL. But then you also have the off seasons, which is just as exciting for the MLB, and I believe it's just the MLB. But you're also in a weird in between with the NFL because, granted, there's still playoffs going on and there's still teams playing this weekend. It's also exciting because in the matter of 24 hours, we've had already like 5 head coach firings, which is just as exciting. You have guys that have already committing to a next season with a team, maybe decommitting to a next season with a team. There's just a lot going on, and it's super exciting. Like you said, a little bit of everything sprinkled in today.
Yeah, and I want to give a quick shout out to our viewing audience. Last week's episode, we've clutched the century mark, highest viewed episode yet. So a little golf clap. We appreciate the support.
There we
We're
go.
growing the audience. Like I said, we start on WSYC. We're blessed what we had there, but we wanted to branch out, and we're happy to announce we're going to be continuing branching out because coming potentially even the day you're seeing this, but sometime this week, we're going to be launching the Bottom Line TikTok, the Bottom Line Instagram, and the Bottom Line X/ Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what people even call it anymore, but it's officially
I
known as
still
X.
call it Twitter. I got no
It
shame in
just
that.
feels right.
Yeah,
But regardless, we're going to be launching those platforms where you can get small clips, live reactions, just basically just a little bit of everything, but just another way to view our content. And we're just happy to continue to expand it. It's pretty exciting stuff, Ben.
oh, dude, I'm excited. I mean, it's like we've talked about before. There's never too much content, so just enjoying what we're doing, and hopefully other people enjoy it as well.
So yeah, so we appreciate all the support that we're getting. I know this is a big transition we're making that we're doing on, but we appreciate the support we're getting. We're continuing to keep on building it. But that's enough rigmarole. Let's start talking sports here, and we got to start here with the big NFL games. So let's start with the first one. This was at least here in PA. It was snowy. This was a snowy one in Baltimore. It was just some rainfall, but the snow was falling, so I had a nice cup of hot cocoa enjoying this game. But this was a vintage AFC North game. This was an ugly football game that the Steelers won, but I'll tell you what, Ben, this was a grind to get through. The Steelers
Yeah.
won, and they needed help to get into the playoffs, which we're going to talk about what happened. They ended up clinching the playoffs. So Mike Tomlin, I don't know, he waved his magic wand again. He found a way to get the Steelers team to the playoffs. It just doesn't make sense how he keeps doing it. I mean, this game was a hard watch. It really was.
Yeah, from the jump, we kind of knew that this game was going to be a little ugly just off the weather. The weather kind of allowed this game to be as ugly as it was. I mean, there was rain, it was pouring the whole game, which honestly, I feel like with the way these both teams were suited up for the game, probably favored the Steelers just because they had more of their guys in the trenches and could kind of just muscle their way through against probably half the Ravens backups. And Mason Rudolph looked very stellar again, continuing to protect the ball and had a big touchdown pass late in the game that kind of put a dagger in the game. So honestly, like you said, it's just crazy to see the Steelers team continuing to win. And this was another, impressive win that got them into the playoffs. Well, not officially. They had to get some help, but they knew they had a good shot if they would take care of business in this game, and that's what they did. I mean, there was no you know, complicated way to put it besides they just found a way. I mean, that is the definition of Steelers football.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers here. Najee Harris, 26 carries for 112 yards and a score. I mean, Najee gets a lot of flack, but I'll tell you what, man. The past few weeks, he's been doing what's been asked of him. He's been playing some good football. As kind of a bell cow. They kind of have a two-man committee with Warren there too, but they complement each other
Yeah.
very well. Warren very much that explosive change of pace guy, and then Najee, you can just count on him to fall forward on every play and get you a solid 3 to 4 yards a rush. And it's a good formula. And I want to talk about Mason Rudolph here. You just alluded to it in your opening there. He's one of those guys that when he got drafted out of Oklahoma State, I believe. I forget where he went. I want to say Oklahoma State. I might be
Something
wrong.
like that.
Don't
Yeah,
quote me on that. But regardless, he got drafted and he's one of those guys that really got a shot. He got drafted as a backup and just kind of stayed in that role. But to his credit, whenever he sees the field, he he gives you a chance to win. I was looking at the numbers. He has an over 500 plus record as a starter. You have guys like I'm just thinking on top of my head, guys like Josh Rosen who get drafted and instantly get a chance and they crumble. Rudolph, he hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities, but every time he's got an opportunity, he performs to an extent. He's not gonna blow you away, but he does you enough to win you a football game. I'm happy for him. He's a good guy. I love watching his post game interviews. He always says the right things. Great locker room presence. He made a couple big plays, a couple to Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. He just went absolutely silent this game, which was not what I was expecting. Like he was starting to build some momentum, but hey, credit to Mason Rudolph, man. I understand this was against the second stringers of the Ravens. Let's make sure we put that out there too. But it's a
Big
divisional
asterisk
game,
there.
and it's a divisional game, and it's a tough play, especially given the conditions. So I want to tip my cap there to Mr. Rudolph on a job well done.
Yeah, like you said, we both have nothing but good things to say about Mason Rudolph. I think it's interesting that despite this Mason Rudolph performance, the Steelers are pretty much already verbally committed to Kenny as their starter next year, which is
Yeah,
understandable. But it's
you have
crazy
to.
to think that like Mason Rudolph is going to get the start this weekend in a playoff game, and their quote unquote franchise guy is sitting on the bench waiting for next season. And I get it, I really do. It's just weird, but also big tip of the cap to the Steelers who continually find ways to beat the Ravens, and the rest of the NFL can't do it, but for some reason this Steelers team every single year always finds a way to beat them.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Then the second game
Oh,
of the night was oh man. I mean, we were split on this one. We both said doing our predictions. I picked Texans, you picked Colts, but we both said we wouldn't really be shocked either way. And just from the jump, what this was, you just knew from the jump this game was going to be awesome because on the Texans' first play of scrimmage, CJ Stroud just unleashes an absolute bullet. I mean, like 60 plus yards to Nico Collins on their first offensive play of the game. This was just an intense. I mean, pretty much this was the first playoff game of the season for the NFL because this was do or die for both these teams. And I mean, this was one of those games where I wanted to see both teams win. It really was because both
were
these
you
teams have
hoping for the rare tie?
the tie gate. Remember what was it a few years back with the Chargers and another team that
The
had a chance.
Raiders, the Raiders.
Yeah, those Chargers Raiders had a chance to tie. It didn't happen. The whole NFL won. But yeah, this is where you wanted the tie to come out because both these teams have such compelling stories for different reasons. You have the Texans who have historically been a struggling franchise, and they have this young head coach, they have a young new quarterback, and they're proving themselves worthy. And then for the Colts, you have more. I don't want to say historic franchise, but a much more franchise that has success. They lose all their
Championship
key.
DNA.
Yeah, championship DNA. It's a great way to put it. And they lose their young rookie quarterback. They have their star running back out for the beginning of the year, and they still find a way to put themselves in a situation to win. I wanted both teams to win this game, and the fact that it came down to the end and the way the game ended just absolutely broke my heart. I felt so bad. I'm slipping on the name. The backup Colts running back who dropped that pass from Gardner Minshew.
Zach
Which
Moss?
no, it wasn't Zach Moss. It was
Oh, it was the other guy. The other guy. I
I'm
know who you're
I'm
talking about.
I'm blanking on the name, but
I
it
mean, I
was a
can
poor
find it.
pass for. Well, I want to jump straight to that play because I mean, granted, that's just it was the play of the game. Um, Gardner Minshew did not throw that great of a ball on that 4th and 2. Yes, should have been caught probably, but if that ball was placed where it should be, you'd probably assume that that's going to be a first down. That just did not happen. I mean, this was just oh, it was heartbreaker, but I mean, shout outs to the Colts, man, on an incredible season. Ben, what were your thoughts on this game? I'm kind of going on a bit of a soapbox here, so I'll let you talk a little bit about this one.
No, you're all right. This game was fun. Like you said, this felt like the first real playoff game. I mean, just kind of playoff atmosphere, playoff vibes. That place was rocking. I feel like we don't put enough appreciation on Colts fans, one of the most
Oh yeah,
underappreciated fan bases in football. I mean, they love their Indianapolis Colts, and the Loud House is what they call it. Was very loud. Multiple false starts. CJ Stroud said in an interview just the other, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, that was the loudest NFL stadium he's played at so far. And granted, that's a small sample size, but it still means something. But yeah, it was. I mean, that place was rocking. Big game, lots of implications on the line, and this young Houston Texans team with a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach. Their best player on defense was a rookie. Just a young team just somehow found a way to look almost like the veteran team here. I mean, they looked very prepared. They looked unfazed by the moment, and I'm so happy for that team. Like I just a lot of people doubted this Indian or not Indianapolis team. There's a lot of people doubted this Houston team, and they have proved everyone wrong from the jump. And I think they've got a really, really bright future in the AFC South now, even with both these teams, but especially in Houston, as we can tell. But no doubt this AFC South is going to be a division to watch for the next decade.
And we're going to talk about the other game, but this was you thought this okay? Texans they made the wild card. No, they won the division because
Yeah,
of the Jaguars club. So this is a team that won their division. I mean,
yeah.
it's just absolutely crazy. A team that lost their arguably best wide receiver, maybe second best, but a big playmaker in Tank Dell. They lose him, and they just bounce back. Next guy at mentality. And for the Colts, I mean, it's impressive as well. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, 30 carries, 188 yards, and a score, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Minshew did not have his best game by any stretch. 13 for 24, 141 yards. I mean, that's I want to put pin on him, but you hope he'll be the first to tell you he did not play his best football. We've seen what
You
Gardner Minshew
can't
is
blame
capable
him,
of.
but it does add context. There's
Yes,
context to it.
very
But you
much so.
can't solely blame him, but it does add context to the game. There's no doubt.
No, I mean it was a playoff atmosphere, and it was just the team that made less mistakes won. That's what it came down to. I think that's the simplest way to put it.
That is how all playoff games go. You can't make mistakes. The second you make mistakes, it's another good team that will capitalize on your mistakes.
Well, talking about mistakes, I don't know if you meant to do that
Ugh.
on purpose or not, but I mean that was just beautifully said. I mean, we're gonna talk about my Eagles here in a minute, and I have a lot to say about that. But I will say this: I think the Jags collapse might be an inch worse than the Eagles, an inch worse than the Eagles, because at least one team's gonna make the playoffs. The other isn't because
Yeah.
weeks ago we thought the Jags had a chance to host a home playoff game, and now they're going home. Now they're going home. That's from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. The Jaguars losing Tennessee in a game where they could have just controlled their own destiny and clinched the division with a win against a team, quite frankly, they should have no problem beating. A team that was starting Ryan Tannehill in the year 2024 at
Oh
quarterback.
yeah.
And
There it
hey,
is.
I mean, you're a Dolphins guy. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to throw shade at your former QB,
No,
but
no, no. You go ahead. I cannot stand that guy.
oh, okay, okay. I didn't know what your relationship was there, so I just wanted to preface that. But I mean, it's not even the fact that this game was close either, because it wasn't. The Titans just pretty much dominated the Jaguars in every single aspect. Every single aspect. The turnover game, the running game, Derrick Henry, he had a monster performance. Special teams everywhere. I mean, the Titans won all three facets of the game, and ever since Trevor Lawrence got hurt, something has just felt different in Jacksonville. Just something hasn't seemed right. Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't have that rushing ability. Not necessarily as a pure rusher, but the ability to move around the pocket, elude to pressure in that sort of aspect. It hasn't been the same. He missed so many throws that he usually just make without even thinking about it in this game. I want to say maybe the moment was too big, because it's been a couple times now where Jacksonville has just been, I mean, it's starting to become a continual trend where they put themselves in a position to succeed, and then they crumble under the pressure. I mean, I look back against I think it was Kansas City, where they were just dominating that game in the playoffs, and then they just let it slip through their fingers. And now in this, where they lose 28-20, the Titans put up 28 points against the Jags, and they lose. I mean, it's really really bizarre how this Jags team is uh is not making the playoffs. It just makes you question, like, what's the issue here? I don't know where you start. Does it start with Lawrence? Is he the franchise guy? You think he is, but I don't know. I don't want to overreact to it, but it's starting to become a continual trend.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. Like you said, there's a lot of finger pointing probably across the organization right now. And I think it's you sometimes got to take a little bit of time to really, process and really think about what happened before you just jump to quick conclusions. And I'm glad they're doing that. They're not imploding. They're not firing Doug Peterson. They're not getting rid of Trevor Lawrence. They're not doing anything drastic without really thinking about it. But like you said, I mean, this team was 8-3 a couple weeks ago, and that's a bona fide contender, record in the league. If you're 8-3, you're considered a real contender, and they were at the time. They were winning football games. It wasn't always pretty, but they were winning football games, and they were at the top of their division. a division that was kind of on the come up, but you still felt like they were the top dogs in that division. It was kind of their division to lose, and they go 1-5 in their last 6. And that can't happen. I mean, that just can't happen.
Not only was it 1-5 in their last 6, but I mean, some of these teams that they were playing, I mean, they lose to the Bucks, they lose to the Titans, they lose to the they lose to the Bengals. And no disrespect to Jake Browning, but that's a game you should have.
Yeah.
Lots of winnable. It's not that fact they were losing; it was winnable games.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, these are winnable games, and I considered the Jags one of the contenders, maybe not Super Bowl contenders, but they were, a legitimate team. I mean, they like we talked about just last year, they had won a playoff game and then went to Kansas City and gave Kansas City a serious run for their money in Kansas City, which a lot of teams up until that point hadn't done. It hadn't really happened in a while. They gave them the best run for
Yeah,
their
playoff
money in
setting.
Kansas
That's the
City.
closest we've seen, other than the Bills game.
Yeah, I mean they really had a good shot to win that game, and that is, as a Jags fan, you probably came into this year and said, "I feel like we probably got a lot better on all facets of the
You add
ball."
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, you had Calvin Ridley, who was supposed to be a big playmaker, big signing, and it wasn't that Calvin Ridley was bad, but maybe you didn't get as much out of him as you probably thought you were gonna get. It
Yes.
just didn't. A lot of stuff just didn't seem to click. I mean, you thought Trevor Lawrence was going to take another step, and even I was one of those people that was saying he might have been an MVP candidate this year. Just never happened. It never really clicked for this Jags team, and I don't know where to start. And that's going to be what they're going to figure out this offseason, because this Jags team had championship level play written all over it.
Another thing I want to add with Jacksonville is they did lose Christian Kirk, who really was the wide receiver one of this team. I mean, that was Trevor Lawrence's go-to guy. I don't know if
Yeah,
losing him, I don't know if losing him hurt, but I mean, when you have playmakers still around you, Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley, Travis Etienne, even Zay Jones to an extent, he's for a wide receiver
you
three.
got to find a way.
That's pretty good. You got to find a way to make work what you got, especially when you've had so many weeks to game plan around your current unit. I mean, you look at other teams around the league, your Dolphins, for example. I mean, injuries are going to happen to every team, but the injuries for Jacksonville overall really weren't as bad as it could have been. I mean, you look at other teams across the league; they actually been quite good in terms of avoiding the injury bug.
Yeah, I mean, the injury bug was not terrible. You lost Trevor Lawrence for about a game or two, but all things considered, you had your franchise quarterback for almost the whole season. You only lost one major playmaker on offense, and they were pretty healthy across the board on the O line, the D line. I mean, this was a healthy football team that had to win one game against a team that was below 500 to win their division and host a playoff game. And the fact of the matter is, they couldn't do it.
Simple as that. A team that did do it in their respective division were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Granted, it was against the Panthers in probably the worst game of the week, but they got the dub. They got the dub. I think the final score was like 9. I want to say 9-0, 9-3. It was single
Yeah,
digits.
ugly, very ugly game.
Yeah, 9-0. I have it pulled up now. I was looking for the thing on ESPN. The games are all over the place. The order is just terrible, but I got it. Yeah, 9-0. I mean, hey, I mean, they found a way, but I mean that's not really. Hey, this is a weird thing. So I'm an Eagles fan, and I should be happy that we're playing the Bucks, but the Bucks had a better performance. I want to turn this into an Eagles segment because we're gonna have the Eagles segment. I'll just say this: the Buccaneers winning 9-0 look miles better than the Eagles versus the Giants. We'll leave it at that for now, but I'll try to stick with Tampa Bay for the time being. It's a divisional matchup, but I mean, all the divisional rivals we've had no problem with handling the Panthers. They found a way to get the win. I mean, the defense, credit the defense. I mean, I know it's the Panthers, but still holding an NFL team to 0 points is a very hard task to do. I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. His story is just incredible with the Browns just getting rid of him, and then he shines in LA at the end of the season. Now he gets a shot at the Buccaneers. Now it looks like he's earned another year at quarterback, leading this team to a division, and we'll see what they do in the playoffs. Um, Obviously not an impressive win, but a win nonetheless. And speaking overall as a season, I think most people had this as a two-team race between the Falcons and the Saints for the division title, and the Buccaneers just kind of come out of left field and say, "Hey, we're still legit." They're kind of hanging on to like what's left of that Tom Brady Super Bowl team. I kind of feel like that's what this team is, and we're gonna see what they can do in the playoffs. I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. Was not the best performance this game specifically, but overall as a season, huge success for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's been very solid. No pun intended here. That he's been kind of just steadying the ship for the Bucks, and that's kind of what you wanted out of Baker Mayfield. You just wanted him to be stable and make a couple plays because they still have playmakers. They still have Mike Evans, who continuously is one
Oh
of the
my
most
gosh.
consistent receivers in
He does
football.
not get nearly enough credit as he should. Second week in a row with the phone call during the show. Keep going, Ben.
No, you're all right. I'm just saying that Mike Evans is extremely consistent every single year. You still have Chris Godwin. Big, massive tip of the cap to Rashad White, who bursted on the scene this year, kind of put himself in one of the upper echelons of the backs in the league. I mean, he had a very impressive year for a running back, and not a lot of people really talked about it, but kind of under the radar. But yeah, very impressive out of Rashad White and this whole Bucks team who found a way to win a division. And granted, it is the ugliest division in football by every single way possible, but a division title is still a division title. And 5 years from now, no one's going to go look back and care at what this division was. A division title counts all the same in the record books.
Hey, you're right. They will go down as the 2023 2024 NFC South champions. And that's no one's gonna remember this game that they do the clinch it. What they're gonna remember is the title of being division champ. So good for the Bucks. Good for the Bucks. I mean, you kind of knew going into this year if you could get over the 500 mark, that was probably gonna be around the number to win the division. They hit that quota. They hit the quota. So we'll talk about the playoff matchups here a bit later. I won't go into that now. But let's transition to this because there's only one way to summarize the Eagles season. I think the caption I use describes it perfectly. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The Eagles, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. It did. Because they lose 27-10 to the New York football giants. Last week I went on an epic rant, and Ben, I don't have a rant this week. I really don't. What more can a man say? This is just a team that is completely lost. They're just scratching they're just scratching at anything to try to have any form of success, and nothing's working. The offense bland, predictable, not explosive. Now, granted, there was no Devontae Smith in this game, no DeAndre Swift, and AJ Brown goes down. Someone, by the way, needs to investigate that MetLife turf because there's something going on there.
I
That
told you.
that's
I
that
told
turf
you.
is you did warn me last week. Jalen Hurts finger snaps, AJ Brown goes down. Something about that stadium.
Sidney
They
Brown loses his ACL.
now it looks like everyone's going to be at least good enough to play, which is that's a blessing in itself. But uh, that's not the point of this game. Even without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, you should be able to take care of the Giants easily. This is a Giants team that had nothing to play for except pride. To beat a division rival that they never have any success against. The Eagles own the Giants. That's like the one thing we can count. Even a few weeks back when we were struggling, we still found a way to beat the Giants, and we just completely unwrapped on offense, on defense. The only positive thing about this team right now is Jake Elliott is one of the best kickers in the NFL. That's the only positive thing I can say about this unit. This is an aging defense. And I don't know if the age is showing. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know. Obviously, we're seeing losing both those coordinators was a big loss. But you got to find a way. And what confuses me is that we had so much success at the beginning of the year. These coordinators have proven that they can lead a Super Bowl contender, and now that team just looks miles and miles gone. And they find a way to sneak into the playoffs as the I want to say sneak in, even though they are the top wild card team. But I mean, I'm at the point now where the Bucks being us seems like a likely scenario.
Have a
It's
shot.
they definitely have a shot. I mean, Vegas doesn't have them favored, but darn it, I think they maybe should be. That's where we're at. It's I don't really have a whole lot more I can say. I mean, I can say the same thing I said last week, but I'm not going to do that again. I don't. I'm at a point now where I've seen it so many weeks in a row where I'm not even upset. I turned this game off. I turned it off because I just wasn't going to put myself through the suffering, and I knew in the second half everyone was going to be seated out anyway. I just wanted to enjoy and salvage what was left of my Sunday evening. I mean, it's just it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. That just summarizes everything. It does.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, there's not we've been down this road before. There's not much to talk about. I mean, it just it really seems like this Eagles team has just found a way to collapse. And to me, I really think that we are seeing the punishment of losing both your coordinators at this point in the season. And I know they found a way through the first 10 to 11 weeks to really be a Super Bowl contender without those two coordinators. But when you get to this point of the season, teams are going to adjust, teams are going to adapt, teams are going to start out scheming you. And in this situation, I just think these two coordinators for the Eagles, Ben Johnson and I guess was it Matt Patricia now? Who's the official defensive guy?
It's it's weird. Matt
Or
Patricia's
is it
calling the
Decide?
plays, but it's so Matt Patricia calls the play, but Desai still has the title defensive coordinator. It's kind of like a merged thing, but Patricia's the one officially calling the plays, but Desai is still up in the I don't that's the thing, Ben.
Okay.
I don't even know. I don't even know. Like it's
Point is it's still the same here. Is that
yeah.
you're noticing that both those coordinators meant a lot more to this team than we can probably give them credit to, because we're even seeing what those two coordinators have done. We're seeing Shane Steichen being an excellent head coach out in Indianapolis, lead that team to almost a playoff berth in his first season with all that stuff going on. And even Gannon, who the Cardinals have not been pretty by any stretch of the imagination, still see the light. You still kind of see the light with that
Even
Cardinals team.
before Gannon got hired, they were supposed to be the worst team in the league, and I think given what he had to work with, I think he
Yeah,
did
like I
an
said, you
okay
see
job.
the light.
Yeah,
You see
yeah.
the vision starting to come on. Kyler Murray looks way better as a quarterback in the back half of that season. They beat a couple good teams. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Eagles. They're starting to get some wheels going a little bit. They're gonna have a high draft pick, tons of cap space. You see the vision with the Cardinals, and now you're lost with this Eagles team. And that's, to me, that's what I want to talk about. I just want to know where they go from here. Even if you have a good run in this playoffs, it doesn't feel right. Like it just, I don't know if they will. I don't know if they won't. The question is where do you go from here? Because like you said, it's an aging defense. There's no sugarcoating it. Besides
It,
Jalen Carter, besides what maybe
Nolan
maybe
Smith,
Nolan Smith, everyone's going to be out the door in
Jordan
about a
Davis.
year. Jordan Davis. Okay, so you have
Yeah.
three like genuine cornerstone pieces that are going to be here for a while, and they're all Georgia guys, and they pretty much just. Besides that, I mean, all these guys will be out the door in about a year, maybe two. And and
Cindy
and where do
Brown's been
you
okay, but yeah, I mean, you look at all the key
where do you
guys.
go from here? Where do you go?
We're in a world where Kelsey, Graham, and Cox could all easily retire after this year, and those are the
And
three
I
of the
think they
biggest.
will. I think they will. That I
I
don't I I don't know if I see all three of those guys coming back. I think you'll be lucky if you see one of those guys suited up again next year. One
I
of them.
agree. I agree. I really have a lot to argue here. Here's my thing on this. I don't know if it's a fan in me, and or I'm just always been an optimistic person, or maybe
Oh,
just fan in me.
I am one to be
I
optimistic. I get you.
I don't know why, but I still feel like they have a chance to turn it around. It's just because I know they can. It's because I know the talent's there, and I think it's a mix of this. When you look at this slump, I think it's a mix of the players on the field. But I think it's like you said. I think it's more coaching than player based. Now, to an extent, you have to blame the players for not performing. But I think this is more coaching because it's just scheming. You can just kind of see they're being out coached, outplayed. I I'd see people in the Philadelphia media world calling for Nick Sirianni's job. I don't want to go that far yet. I don't think that's fair at all. I think that's a slight overreaction because it's just still a guy that got to Super Bowl last year. But if you rewind a few years back with a certain guy named Doug Peterson who won the Super Bowl, and it only took him a year or two of not even poor play, just above average play, but not to the play that the owners wanted, he was gone. And this is kind of a similar situation now where you have a coach who led his team to a Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but he led them to a Super Bowl, an amazing accomplishment, and now they're slipping. Still, on all things considered, a good season, but that in Philadelphia, good doesn't cut it. It's just it's a tough world, and now people are starting to call for Sirianni's job. I think I think no matter what happens, unless if we miraculously win the Super Bowl, I think that's the only way where these coordinators can say. I think the coordinator's got to go, and you give
But
Nick
what
Sirianni
a
one last chance. I think that's where we're at right now. I think he only has 1 year left on his leash. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
you give him. I think you give him one more year to hire a staff, because this was a very bad staff hiring he just did, and part of it was what promotions, I guess. So it wasn't really
Yes.
official hirings, but the point is
No.
is that
Yeah, no
you're in
outsiders. No one else.
charge. of putting together a good staff. That's part of a head coaching job. Some coaches are great coaches. They just can't put together a staff. And that's part of being a head coach. And if
Well, you
Sirianni lets
saw
his team
he's certainly capable. You saw the stuff last year, and I guess he
right,
thought, okay, well, we're just going to stick with the system, and that's not what he did with last year's staff. Last year's staff, those were outsiders, and you saw what they did. He tried to keep it in the system. It didn't work, and I think given just with the coaching landscape, for the most part, the entire NFL coaching landscape is changing next year. If there's a time to hire offensive and defense coordinators, they're going to be flying around like crazy this offseason. So if there's a time to do it, it's going to be this offseason. But I'm not counting the Eagles out for this season, by the way. I don't know if it's a fan of me, but I don't know why.
I
I
mean,
see the light.
you gotta get one and go from there. You gotta get
I
this
think I
weekend.
think it's and I think that's all it takes for these guys. I think they just have one really good, impressive team win on the road in Tampa Bay. That I think might be enough to at least give them a fighting chance. But who knows if they can even pull that off? Who knows? But I still I'm holding the faith.
No shame in that at all. I've been there.
Well, we'll keep moving on here. But the Packers love Mr. Love. Let's finish the Packers Bears. By the way, a rivalry that the Packers just continue to dominate in this modern era. It
Does
just
not matter who's playing quarterback for the Packers. They own Chicago. I mean, it's true.
17 to 9, and I know the score may not sound that impressive, but I was very impressed by the Packers in this game. I mean, the Bears they've really come alive. They finished the season 7-10, which was I think it was way so by all things considered a good football team. And Jordan Love just kind of team managed his way to victory. I liked what he saw, and this Packers team's building a lot of momentum. And now they're going into a playoff game against Dallas. Again, I don't want to tease that matchup too much just yet. But the Packers have a fighting chance in these playoffs, man. They know their identity. Aaron Jones, he's finally starting to get healthy. He carried 22 touches for 111 yards.
I
He's
talked
really
about
just
this a few weeks ago
yeah.
with how important he really is for this offense, and we're seeing it.
Tell me the last time where if Aaron Jones plays a complete game, the Packers are usually winning those games. If you look at it, like for games where he's rushing, getting like 15 to 20 round carries, that usually leads to a Packers victory. And Jordan Love, despite Aaron Jones having 22 cut touches, still threw for 300 plus passing yards and two scores. He's there. He is the guy. And credit to the Packers front office because they saw this vision through and through, despite all the criticism they got from just about everybody. They saw the vision, and that vision has come alive. And the Packers are now going to go into the playoffs, and even for the next foreseeable future now, it is a bright future in Green Bay. I mean, hats off to Jordan Love. I mean, how can you not love the guy?
Yeah, the patience to sit behind one of the great quarterbacks of our generation, one of the great quarterbacks of all time for years and learn and just sit and wait your time. And now it's your time. And what do you do at the moment? You don't let it phase you. You are replacing a Hall of Fame quarterback who replaced another Hall of Fame quarterback, and you step in and just stay composed, do your job, and you get better each week. You're seeing him get better and better and better, and he's really started to come on in the back half of the season. And now you just go get him help, go get him some weapons. I no disrespect to that receiving core, when with all those guys. I like the young tight ends they drafted, especially Musgrave, but man, get this guy a true number one and maybe a couple better number twos, and you will really start to see some production out of Jordan Love, like high end production.
Yeah, this team has all the makings. Again, Green Bay has historically always had a good defense. It just seems like every year their defense is always going to give you a shot. This defense is definitely above average, one of the 15 best defenses, no doubt about it. And yeah, they got everything's there. We said it last week. They're just missing that number one guy. I mean, just imagine the world where Devontae Adams just does not go to the Raiders, and this
Yeah,
team's
who's that
complete.
guy? Never heard of
The,
him.
the team's complete. The team's complete. That's all you're missing. So whether you want to draft a young receiver, which again, this draft class could be a great chance to do it. Or if you want,
Loaded.
or if you want to sign a more guy that's already proven himself, I'm okay with either option. There's pros and cons each, but I think they have to definitely choose one of the two options this offseason.
To me, that's got to be their top target. I think this team is almost, I don't want to say complete by any stretch of the imagination, but they're pretty well solidly built besides playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. They just lack a few of them. And Aaron Jones being healthy helps. It really does. But you need a couple more. In today's NFL, you need more playmakers.
Real quick, Ben, before we move on to our next game, I'm going to put you on the spot here because what we talked about was the Packers so far. What should Chicago do? Because from what I've seen, it's split 50-50 on what people think. I'm personally a big believer in trading down to at least two or
I
lower.
think we kind
And,
of
and
talked about this last week a little.
yeah, I think I'm a huge, even though I'm a Michigan guy, I'm a huge supporter of Justin Fields, and I think he has all the makings to lead the Chicago Bears out of the mud that they have been in for like the past decade. It seems. I think you stick around Fields. What do you think? Because I see some analysts saying that hey, they should draft Caleb Williams. You're never going to see another prospect like this that you can just get at number one ever again. I don't know. I like Caleb Williams, but I don't think I like him as much as some of these other big time analysts do.
I think what you know you have out of Justin Fields, it gives you enough to keep him. And what you have is you have a locker room guy that's a true leader. This guy has faced backlash, criticism. He's been, I mean, people have done nothing but criticize this guy from the day he was drafted, and he's kind of stayed calm. Hasn't really, thrown shade at anyone, just kind of stayed quiet, kept his head down and gone to work. And what he's done is gone to work. He's gotten better each year. You saw in his rookie year, okay, the flash was there of a playmaker. Wasn't really much of a passer his rookie year, was kind of just making plays on the run, but you saw the playmaking ability there and you saw the cannon arm. It was glimpses, but you saw he has a cannon of an arm, just a
Oh
matter of
yeah,
him using it. And then the second year, you started to see him kind of come out a little bit more of what you can get out of him when he plays well. But the problem was last year it was consistency. It was either he had a really, really good game or a really, really terrible game. And this year it was just he's kind of even the playing field a little bit. You started to see what happened when he got DJ Moore going. Having him a true number one guy was
that
big.
was a great trade by the way. Getting DJ
Exactly.
Moore, and
Yeah.
the
And you
players love
saw,
him. The fans love him. Everyone around the Chicago Bears organization, outside, we don't know how the front office feels, obviously, but the players on the team and the fan base, they want their guy. They want to keep Fields. It
yeah.
seems like the answer is clear to me. I think
Yeah,
it,
so I think to me the obvious thing to do is you trade down. Now, if you want to keep your pick, you better go with Marvin Harrison if that's what you're really doing. But just trade down. Trade down. There are so many teams that right now that are desperate for a quarterback, and there's more teams that will become desperate for a quarterback,
they can get a good haul.
especially if they come in and hire a new head coach, and that head coach is banging the table saying, I need this guy, I need this guy. Teams are going to be calling, offering up first round picks, high level star player. We saw last year what they got for that. They got DJ Moore, who's a superstar wide receiver. Who knows who's going to get called? Who knows? I mean, to me, there's no reason that this Bears team is good, but they still have holes besides the quarterback position. Granted, you want to see more out of Justin Fields, but you want to see more about a lot of other positions. There's probably at least 5 other positions on that team that you would say we need more out of this position if we're going to be a bona fide, playoff team. And that's all
Hey,
it comes down to.
beautifully said, my friend. Beautifully said. I'm not going to say those words on the screen. That's just for the sake of the caption. I will not utter those four
How
words
about
out
them
of my.
Cowboys? I'll say it.
Okay, there you go. But this was a big game for Dallas because if they lost this game and if the Eagles somehow beat the Giants, they were going to be a wild card team. And this was a team who all year the knock was they can't perform on the road. Well, they finally performed on the road. Granted, it was against the 4-13, I believe, Commanders. But that's still a division game, and they're still on the road in what was a tough environment. I mean, those NFC East division games usually never come easy. Dallas had started off slow, but they really just tore the Commanders apart in the second half. And now they're going to be the 2 seed in the NFC, and they now have a path to the Super Bowl because now they're going to be at home up until a potential match against the Niners if both those teams went out. But Dak, man, he went 31 of 36 for 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough to beat. And CeeDee Lamb has just emerged as arguably the best receiver in the NFL right now. Definitely top three. But you can certainly make an argument for
Tyreek
him.
Hill. Come on now.
I'm just saying there's an argument to be made. I don't think he is, but you can't argue that he's not a top three receiver in
Top
the league.
2, he's
Yeah.
the second best in the league right now, and I think the gap between him and Tyreek, and then the gap between everyone else is drastic. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much what I was alluding to. And this team, they finally put together a performance on the road, and now they get to go back home in Dallas and play in Jerry's World. And this is the moment that we've all been waiting for all year. The moment we wait for every year with the Dallas Cowboys. How will they transition from regular season success to the postseason? Because that's been the missing ingredient for this team through the Prescott era, through the Romo era, ever since like the glory days of the 80s and 90s. This team just always seems to have a really good regular season and they collapse in the playoffs. And this year does feel different, but this Dallas team has shown where there's been signs of potential cracks. Now I think this is one of the strongest teams in the NFL. I think by all things considered, they should be a Super Bowl favorite. And I'm on the edge of my seat seeing how this team performs because that's always been the thing with the Cowboys is they can never win the big time games. And now the spotlight's on them more than it has ever been before because this team just from top to bottom is lethal. Lethal.
Yeah, I mean, you like you talked about when this team is playing their game of football and they're playing it well. This is one of the best teams in football. They are a true legitimate contender. They have a great offense with Dak, who CeeDee Lamb and him have really just found unreal levels that we never thought we'd see. I wish looking back on it, they would have gotten a second big name running back at the deadline because you're kind of starting to see the crack there with Tony
Well, aren't
Pollard
they?
and
I think the rumor to sign they're the favorites to sign Dalvin Cook right now.
Dalvin already signed to Baltimore.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, you just called me out there on the spot. I did not do my
Yeah,
research. I didn't
Imma
I didn't
forget
realize he
that one
signed.
said.
I didn't even realize he
Yeah.
signed.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dalvin's on the active roster, but anyways, uh, they're
my
kinda
bad, my bad.
missing, they're kinda missing another back still, I think besides Tony Pollard, who's arguably taken a step back this year. You
Oh,
haven't really
definitely.
seen much out of that run game that you probably hope to, but they're still being productive, and you're seeing playmakers on the receiving end step up. I mean, especially Brandon Cooks in the back half of the year. Jake Ferguson's looked like a great tight end. You're seeing the offensive line continue to be that offensive line we know for the Cowboys. And then the defense will always be the defense. I mean, Micah Parsons, Stephon Gilmore, Demarcus Lawrence. I mean, if Trayvon Diggs was still healthy, that'd be something. Deron Bland. I mean, their defense is loaded. Like you said, it's a matter of how this team shows up. And the big thing was getting home field advantage for at least 2 playoff games because the path is there. You get a game against the Packers, which feels like a really favorable matchup. And then if you win that, you get a game against the Lions, who you just saw in your own stadium about a week ago, and you know you can do it. You just got to do it again. And you're playing against a team that hasn't won a playoff game in, oh man, I mean forever. So you know that's the situation you're in, and you feel good if you're a Cowboys fan. I think.
No, you gotta have all the confidence in the world going to the postseason. It feels different this year, as much as it kills me to say it. But it definitely feels different. Dak Prescott has had by far the best year of his career. Probably more than likely will be a finalist for the MVP. I mean, he's
I
right
think
on the
he'll finish
border.
second in voting. I think Lamar probably has him outmatched just a little, but
Oh, definitely.
no disrespect for what Dak has done this year. Proved everyone wrong, including me.
So Ben, we now transition to the last game. I'm not going to rub salt in the wound, but this one has got to hurt because the obviously the subtitle says it all. The Bills defeat the Dolphins 21-14 with the division on the line, and I'm not like I said, I'm not going to make this worse than it already is because this. I mean, just the Dolphins just seems like it was finally their time. It's been a very tough it's been a very tough new millennium for the Dolphins ever since the year like 2000 it seems, but this was a game they should have had. Josh Allen, this was a vintage Josh Allen performance where he's just an absolute gunslinger. He'll make impressive plays. He'll make boneheaded plays. We saw a little bit of everything. At one point, the Bills were 1 for 4 in red zone opportunities, 4 visits, with only 7 points scored, and the Dolphins just had chance after chance that put them away. The Bills stay in it. Hardy with a big punt return for a touchdown. Tua with a couple poor timely interceptions, and the Bills win the division. Ben, I'll let you unleash whatever you need to say. This was just. I thought the way the game was going, the Dolphins were going to lock it up. I was very surprised to see the Bills win this one.
Yeah, I think last week I was angry. To me, the one word that comes to mind this week is just heartbroken. I mean, I just I was just devastated. I mean, You go into this game, and granted, my expectations were low. I didn't come into this game thinking they were gonna win it, and I was okay with that. But you show up, and right out of the gate, the first drive of the game, it looks like the Bills are just driving with ease, and they turn the ball over in the red zone, and I was like, okay, well that was random. Like, okay, that never happens. And then the Dolphins kind of trade blows a little bit back and forth. Josh Allen throws another pick. They're just kind of throwing picks back and forth. And then finally the Dolphins take the lead. They go up 7-0, and they go into the half with a lead. And I feel good about it. I say, okay, you won the first half of football. That just play one half at a time. So they come out in the third quarter. Third quarter, they score a touchdown in the third, and I'm like, okay,
They
this is
scored
good.
2. I have it. They scored
Oh
2 in the
no,
second.
they went up 14-7 at half. Okay, so they were up
Yes.
14-7 at half. Third quarter was fine. They were making play. The defense, if there's one thing I can say about this game, despite being banged up, despite being criticized, despite being 56 points given up to you the week before this team was banged up from top to bottom on the defense, and this was the most very inspiring defensive performance I saw out of this Dolphins team. Props to Vic Fangio for getting these guys ready for this game, because they had a bunch of random guys out there. They had Eli Apple and Stephon Diggs for half the game. They had Cameron Good and Melvin Ingram rushing the passer. They had to throw Melvin Ingram in coverage on Dalton Kincaid at one point in this game because they were so banged up at linebacker. And this team on defense, despite all that, found a way to hold the Bills to 14 points. My criticism and heartbreak is the same old story with this McDaniel offense and team. It's just you got to close the door. It's another you go into the fourth quarter with a 7-point lead. You just caused a turnover at the end of the third quarter. You just strip sacked, fumbled Josh Allen to get the ball. Go score. Could put the game out of reach. And what do you do instead? You go 3 and out. Fine, whatever. You live with that. Play special teams. What are we doing? This is the most important game of this generation of Dolphins team to finally get over the hump, win this division against a good Bills team. This Bills team has been red hot, and they played really well for 3 quarters, and you give up a punt return touchdown in the biggest game of the season. And I don't know if they've done it all year. If they've done it all year, it's maybe happened once. This might have been the first punt return they've given up all season, and it comes at the most untimely way possible. And you tie the game. Okay, fine. You tie the game. You gotta respond. You're at home. You still have granted, momentum
The
was
Bills
shifted, but
fans took over the stadium at that point. It felt like the Dolphins were playing on the
as
road just
soon
in
as
terms
that
of the
punt return
atmosphere.
was happened, this felt like a road game, and I don't think they just they didn't respond well, and the problem is it's the same problem is as soon as the back against the wall for some reason Mike McDaniel gets stubborn, and that continues to be a problem. And I know these are growing pains that are going to happen with a second year head coach, a quarterback that's still really young, as much as Tua has been in the league. It's still a young quarterback. These are going to be growing pains that you see. And continually, the running game was averaging 5 yards a carry in the first
Yep.
half. They were eating up in the run game. Devon Achane's touchdown run was beautiful. Left Jordan Poyer's ankles back at Hard Rocks. They're probably still chilling on the field. Completely snapped his ankles. Great running game. Jeff Wilson was breaking off chunk runs as well. And in the whole second half, you have 3 rushing attempts. 3 rushing attempts. That can't happen. And even at the end of the game, the defense gives you one more shot, a miraculous stop by the defense to give your offense one more shot. And and Tyreek Hill's dropping a pass that could have gone for 7. Granted, he got PI'd, but it's right off his fingertips. You got to catch that ball. You are Tyreek Hill. You are one of the highest paid receivers in football, if not the highest paid. I don't know the exacts, but it's Tyreek Hill. You catch that football. And then Mike McDaniel refuses to run the ball. Eventually, the Bills just drop back 7 or 8 into coverage almost every play, and they catch Chase Claypool running a bad route, and it wasn't necessarily the best throw, but that was a bad route out of Chase Claypool, and they jump it and they pick it off, and there goes the division in the snap of a finger. And as much as games like these hurt, no doubt about it, I will forever ever go back to that Tennessee game a few weeks ago. that none of this would have
If
needed to
they win that
happen.
game, it doesn't matter. They're probably benching
None
their
of
guys
this
this
would have
game.
needed to happen if you just would have taken care of business against Tennessee. If you would have taken care of business against Tennessee, they would have rested their starters in this game. They wouldn't even have been playing their starters. You
And
would have let everyone get healthy, and you lost. You lost four more starters this game to season-ending injuries, and that would have never have happened. You wouldn't even have had to have worried about it. You probably wouldn't have even had to worry about it last week because of they wouldn't have even probably lost Bradley Chubb, because if they would have gone down in that Ravens game, they probably would have pulled the plug in that game too, because it wouldn't have mattered because you had the division locked up. But now none of this mattered, and you lose the division, and now you go play on the road. I'll save the playoff game talk for later in the episode, but now you have to go on the road in negative degree weather against Kansas City, against playoff Patrick Mahomes. And you know what? You deserve it. You really deserve it. And I, like I said, I'm not mad. I'm just heartbroken because you played 3 quarters of great football against a red hot Bills team, and you couldn't close the door. You gotta close the door. Go ahead.
no, you pretty much said everything that needed to be said. I was just going to allude to the fact that you lost even more starters due to injury and what could have been a preventable circumstance. And the other thing I've started to notice with Tua is if you can just kind of just rattle him a little bit with Mike McDaniel's stubbornness in terms of play calling, you can rattle this team a little bit. Where if you get Tua under pressure and you know he's going to be dropping back when you have 3 rushing attempts in the second half, you can start focusing in on the quarterback, and that makes Tua's job a bit harder. And you kind of see when Tua gets a little bit rattled, that's when things start to fall apart a little bit. And you gotta keep a balanced playbook. I feel like, and that I think that
I
that
think that's
that
every quarterback in the league. I
no,
mean,
I agree. I don't think it's not just
like
Tua
even in
because
Josh Allen in this game, you saw it when the run game wasn't working. The Dolphins defense shut down James Cook in this game. Josh Allen was forced to throw the ball almost every single play, and you saw what happens. The picks are going to happen, fumbles are going to happen, bad things are going to happen, and every quarterback in the league struggles with this. That's why we haven't seen the same success out of Patrick Mahomes this year, is because everything's not working, and he's forced to do it on his own. And even the best quarterback in the league will still struggle with that. And I know people are going to get on Tua, and I don't blame them. He did need to be better, but to disregard everything else of the context in that situation boggles my mind, and it really just it makes me feel bad for the guy that you continually continue to put all the weight on his shoulders when probably you only need to put a little bit of weight on his shoulders.
no, given the unit of this team, given the talent of the rushing ability, I mean, you have a guy. Obviously, he didn't play in this game, but you have a rushing game that set a Dolphins record, and then you just abandon it in a game where you were leading in the second half. In a game you
And
were
it was
leading this game.
working. It was working. You were running the ball all game, and it was making Tua's job easier. You could see the vision was there for me on how the game was going to go. I saw it early on. They were going to run the ball, and it was working. They were going to eat up chunk plays, and then they were going to catch you lacking with one play action and hit those, you know, stereotypical Tyreek Hill 20-yard, what do they call them? Like the little the phase routes where he just the glide route where he glides down. Those were there all game because all it took was the linebackers to jump on the toss plays, and it was going to be there all game. The scheme was there. You saw the beautiful design of what this scheme was going to be, and they just McDaniel, like, he just gets phased. I don't know what it is. He's a genius, but he crumbles in these big time moments to his scheme. He had the scheme, but he didn't call it. I don't understand that.
I wish I had the answers for you. I guess we're gonna find out the answers next week. Let's change gears for the time being. We'll have more football talk a little bit later on in the episode. But let's talk about those Michigan Wolverines because they finally did it.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Historically, Michigan is the grandest college football program, one of the most grand, the most winningest program in the history of college football. There were some really dark ages, and they've come full circle. And Jim Harbaugh leads his alma mater to a college football national title, and it's still kind of surreal that I'm saying those words. So let's talk this game between Michigan and Washington. And for me, Ben, what this came down to was a Big Ten offensive line versus a Pac-12 defensive line, because Pac-12 because Washington did not have an answer for Michigan's run game. I was watching the program. There was a point where Kurt Hershey was praising Washington for holding Michigan to 4 yards of rush. That was a success for them at one point in the game, and that's if you know football, if you're getting 4 yards of rush, that's pretty good. Um, and and Michigan, they just rely on their running game and their defense. JJ McCarthy was really not a factor at all in this game. Last week, we both thought for Michigan to win this, JJ McCarthy was going to have to make a couple key plays. He really only made one key play, and that was a rush. That was a rushing attempt they got for a first down when Michigan was trying to get out of Washington territory. Other than that, this was Blake Corum. This was Dom and Ev were just saying, hand us the ball. The big guys up front are going to push us to victory, and the defense has our backs. And that's what they did. They pounded the ball and Washington they could not find an answer. Michael Penix, God bless him. That offensive line won the award for the best offensive line in the country. I don't want to bash on the Pac-12, but they never played an SEC team. They never played a Big Ten team before this game. If they were playing a schedule against those guys, there's no chance in hell. I'm gonna say no chance in hell they're gonna win that offensive line award because Michael Penix was just getting abused every single play. Even that the sack count didn't shock. If you watch the game, every play he's rushing a throw, running for his life. I mean, they did not allow this Washington offense to run how it ran in weeks past. And Michael Penix, as much as I love the guy, when he's under pressure, we talk about with any quarterback, but especially a college quarterback, when you're under pressure, you're gonna make plays you typically don't make. He made a few big mistakes because he had pressure in his face. Michigan capitalized and we're national champs. And I'm so happy for Jim Harbaugh because this team faced so much adversity with the whole scandal they went through. They lose their head coach, an interim head coach beats Penn State and Ohio State, the two toughest games of the year. They beat Alabama in what was one of the greatest Rose Bowl games we've ever seen. This team goes through all that. They finish the season undefeated and they're national champs. And we're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh, but as much as I want him to stay, this is a fairy tale ending. And I think it only makes sense for him to jump back to the NFL. Obviously, I'd love him to stay, but I mean, you can't write this. If there's a way to go out with your alma mater, this is it. Especially since Michigan's going to be losing a lot of seniors. They're still going to have a good team next year, but I mean, this was the year to do it, and they did it. Props to Washington on an incredible season, but go blue, hell to the victors, baby.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, shifting from it's funny because we just went from a team that abandoned their run game to a team that stuck with their run game and basically said, until you're gonna stop it, we're gonna do it. And the entire game, they didn't stop it. This team ran
Even when
for
even when Washington sort of find a few, I'll start cutting you off. Even when Washington found a few answers, they're like, no, we're gonna keep doing this, and it's gonna work eventually. That's just I love it. I love it. Sorry, I'll let you go ahead now.
No, you're right. I was just gonna say, in the modern football age, I'd never thought I'd see a team rush for 300 yards on the ground in a championship game. Unbelievable numbers. I mean, that is unheard of. Like I said, in the modern football age, that is unheard of for a team to rush for 300 yards on the ground. They just couldn't stop it. And props to Washington for really making this a game. I thought early on it looked like Michigan was really gonna like run this game out of the like they kind of looked like they were gonna, almost make this a blowout early. But Washington started to adjust a little bit, kind of find some answers. It wasn't the solution, but they found some answers. They got a couple questions right and they kept it close for about 3.5 quarters, and then the fourth quarter just kind of didn't get it done. I think the final score doesn't necessarily tell the full story
No,
of how
no,
close
not
this
at all.
game was. There was a little bit
Washington
of
just
garbage
fell
time
apart.
there.
Washington just fell apart in the past few minutes. They threw the costly interception. Michigan pretty much takes it to the house. Then they're just trying to play hero ball and just abandoning their whole game plan. And Michigan just really just
Right.
slammed the door shut.
So this was a close game. Like you said, to me, this was a stereotypical Big Ten football. We're gonna run the ball down your throat, and you're not gonna do anything about it. And like you said, I just don't think the Pac-12 was prepared, and that's no shame at Washington. They don't play anyone like it. The Pac-12 is very much a passing league. Lots of quarterbacks, lots of high flying offense. This was stereotypical smash mouth football, and Michigan felt confident from the jump that their O line was going to get the job done, and they did. And like you said, this was a perfect fairy tale ending for Jim Harbaugh. You're going to get, Jim Harbaugh's going to go to the NFL. JJ McCarthy's going to go to the NFL. Blake Corum's going to go to the NFL. All these guys are going to be NFL made. This probably not that Michigan's going to be bad next year, but like you said, this was kind of their last. This was it. I mean, if they were going to do it, this was going to be the year to do it for at least a couple years, and they did it. And props to Michigan. You retool now. You probably look to a whole different vision. You probably have to build this program not from the ground up again, but
Well, they
it's
have
kind
the
of a
guys ready. They have. I know you don't know much about the program, John fan, but they have the backups ready. But I mean, Grant, I mean, there's a chance Michigan's. I already saw the reports. There's a chance they might set the record for most first round draft picks since like an Alabama team in terms of just the offensive line, the defensive line, a couple key quarterbacks, Will Johnson, Sandstrom. Those are top guys as well. Just all
yeah.
around, just the amount of NFL ready talent on this team is not something that will be replicatable. While there still might be a good enough team to win college football games next year, it won't be to the level of dominance that this team did quite easily.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really, really good Michigan team. So props to them. That's all I can say.
Hey, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think we're both in agreement, though. I mean, Jim Harbaugh, this is there. He did everything he set out to do. When he joined Michigan, the program was in shambles, coming off the Brady Hoke era. They were losing Ohio State every year. It wasn't close. They weren't even being ranked. They were barely getting winning seasons. He came to a program that had nothing going for them, and he had one goal. He says, "I want to put Michigan football back on the map." He did that. It took time. It definitely took time. There were some
I was
dark.
gonna say props to Hardball because I remember vividly there were conversations just 3 4 years ago. People were asking for Jim Harbaugh's job, and people were saying that this team wasn't the like things were not pretty at the start for this Michigan rebuild. But man, has Jim Harbaugh found a way for this. Like they turned it around. Like
He
this
lost
this
his
guy was
first.
criticized,
He lost
criticized.
his first 4 or 5 games against Ohio State, and everyone was just. I mean, I was not. I was over calling for his job. I was pretty PO'd because I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, nothing else matters except beating that one team. That's. I mean, that's the biggest, obviously the biggest rivalry in sports. It was his first 4 or 5 games Ohio State, but in his final 3-year run, he goes 3-0 against Ohio State. He leads his team to two CFP appearances, and he wins one of them. I mean, that's almost as
That's
good as it gets.
three straight college football appearances or playoff appearances for that Michigan team. That's impressive. That doesn't happen. That is Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. Those are those type of program success that you got out of this Harbaugh era for the last couple years. Like we've got to put appreciation on that. But yeah, I think this is probably the last we see of Harbaugh in at Michigan.
Yeah, I think the rumors will come where he's going to. There's going to be lots of jobs out there. I think that's a best saved conversation for me next week since there's so much to talk about. But I'm happy for Jim. I'm happy for Jim. I know he's gotten a lot of slack. It's hard not to be happy for him. Michigan wins national championship. We'll see what's next for both these schools because they're going to be seeing each other a lot more. Washington joined the Big Ten. This was a preview of what they're going to have to do if they want to contend. They're going to have to find some big guys up front and get some more raw talent. I'll leave it at that in terms of that. But now let's talk about some NFL coaching news before we go into our playoff matchup because a lot is happening right now. A lot has happened. So just going off my memory, Arthur Smith, hallelujah, he's gone. Arthur Smith is fired. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. I'm not even a Falcons fan, but Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, your time's coming, baby. Your time's coming. He gets fired. Ron Rivera, he gets fired. I think we all kind of saw that one coming. Mike Vrabel from the Titans, he gets fired. That one was a bit of a shocker. I don't know what you thought about that one, Ben, but he goes. Then Bill Belichick, these are the big four I have on the screen right now. We don't know what's going to happen with him yet. They're going to have some conversations with Robert Kraft in terms of what the future is going to be. I'm leaning on that. We've probably seen his last game in New England. But time will tell. Ben, what are your thoughts on the coaching carousel right now? Because we see this a lot every year, but I think this year especially, this is a lot more madness going on than it has been in years past.
Yeah, so I'll start with the obvious one of these four. I think the obvious one was Ron Rivera. I just think not necessarily was it Ron's problem, but I just don't think that things ever meshed. He had that one really good year in 2020 with that COVID team that they kind of
Was it really a good year? That
overperformed.
division was just awful.
Well, I think they overperformed. I just think that team
Okay,
was better than they should have been that year,
fair.
especially with what they had. They had Alex Smith at quarterback. They had I mean, it was a bad football team that found a way to win games, and they gave who was it in the playoffs that they gave a good run for their money with
The Bucks,
Heineke?
the
Yeah,
Bucks, the
that
Super Bowl winner Bucks. They gave the Bucks the hardest fight out of every team.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. So I thought that was the vision, but it just never really clicked after that. Um, who knows what Washington does from here? I don't really have a prediction. I think the two most obvious scenarios are they either stay in house and promote Bieniemy to the head coach, and then hire a defensive minded coordinator to probably just kind of like the modern NFL where you have a young offensive
Nuts.
guy and then the old defensive coordinator, but you probably hire out of house, maybe an older.
I think it's gonna be a complete reset for Washington personally. I think
So you
Bieniemy might
think
even be
Bieniemy
gone.
is gone too? Well, okay, well,
I personally think so. My prediction is Bieniemy is gonna return to Kansas City.
I mean,
That's
that
my
that'd be
prediction.
that might happen. I don't know. But anyways, but so that was the obvious one. To me, the second most obvious one was probably Arthur Smith. Now, I'm on I was actually thinking Arthur Smith should have gotten another year. I think that's probably in the minority of opinions.
Definitely.
To me, this team just never had good quarterback play.
That's
And
fair.
I think, maybe Arthur Smith isn't a great head coach, but I wanted to see what he could have done with good quarterback play. And granted, the biggest criticism you can give Arthur Smith is that you gotta get your playmakers the ball, and the main 2 names that come to mind are Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, especially Bijan, considering what he had done with limited opportunities. But now Atlanta, who knows what they do? I think that's one of the biggest mysteries out of the head coaching. I would imagine based on the fan base and where they're going, it's probably going to be a young offensive guy and they're going to draft a quarterback and they're going to build from the ground up on that offense. That's probably the most likely scenario, but yeah, Atlanta's the interesting one. The most surprising one was Tennessee. I think we can both agree. I kinda saw the vision there. I mean, I guess we kind of thought maybe it was a possibility. I think it's just surprising because everyone considers Vrabel probably one of the best 15 coaches in the National Football League right now.
I do,
He's a great
definitely.
head coach. Where does he go? Probably the most obvious thing is
We know where he's going.
If Belichick decides to go, him to New England makes all the sense in the world. So then that leads to Belichick. Where does Belichick go? Once again, I don't know. We personally said that the best fit was the Chargers. That seems probably more and more likely as time goes on.
I think it's gonna
Granted,
be between for the sorry, I cut you off real quick. For the Charger, I think it's gonna be between if Bill Belichick leaves, it's gonna be a two-man race between Harbaugh and Belichick. I think it's what's coming down to if Belichick leaves.
well, to me, the problem is where does Harbaugh go? And that's going to be the wild card in all of this because Harbaugh has probably an offer from all these teams. I mean,
He's
Harbaugh
pretty
is
much gonna just pick where he wants to go.
right now. To me, I think everyone's not putting enough love on the Harbaugh to Chicago. To me, that makes more sense than anything.
No, that makes sense because right next door to Michigan, he doesn't have to move. His family doesn't move.
He
Anything.
played in
Yeah,
Chicago. He
and
was
he play.
Chicago's quarterback for what, 10 years?
He
He
could
was
do the
there.
same thing. He could do the same rationale he did for Michigan. He came to Michigan. He's like, "Hey, I played for you guys. I want to. I want. It's been tough the past few years. I want to make things right." Same story, Chicago. Hey, I played for this franchise. I know what this franchise is all about. I want to make things right. And Chicago's right next door to Michigan,
Well,
so
and
he doesn't have to
the
move.
roster flexibility is crazy. He can either build with the quarterback he was given, a great quarterback who he knows a lot about. He played against Justin
There's
Fields
no
multiple
way he's
times.
keeping Justin Fields. He's a Michigan man.
Okay. So if he doesn't keep Justin Fields, you trade Justin Fields away for probably a first or a second, and you have the number 1 overall pick to let Jim Harbaugh pick the quarterback he wants for his franchise. Or if they don't decide to use the number 1 pick, you can trade back, let him get a guy. He could go get JJ
JJ
McCarthy
McCarthy. Yes.
if you really wanted to. But the point is that he would build that they have tons of cap space. To me, that seems like the most likely fit, unless Harbaugh just knows he wants a quarterback that's established and go gets Justin Herbert and does it that way. Now that's going to be the wild card in all this because then that affects where Belichick goes, that affects where Vrabel goes, that affects where everyone goes. So who really knows?
One thing I want to add with this, it's not a guy that's
Yeah.
on one of these four screens. I'm going to be really upset if the Raiders try to get another new head coach. They have their guy. Las Vegas, do not mess this up.
Give Antonio Pierce a shot. I know someone said something about Antonio Pierce is going to get looked at for the Giants defensive coordinator job for Wink Martindale, but
Raiders better sign him as the head coach from year
Raiders
one.
better do the right thing. They messed it up once before. Don't mess it up again. Let Antonio Pierce build this team for a year or two and see what he does. If it sucks, whatever, but he's earned a shot at this squad.
This was another interesting story, kind of connects Arthur Smith in a way. This was the
Very
Saints
much.
Falcons games. The Saints Falcon game. The Saints blew out the Falcons. They needed some help to get into the playoffs, but All the game was over, and they had the ball at the 1 yard line. They could need it. Instead, they rush in for the rushing touchdown, which was not the play call that Dennis Allen called. He called for a QB kneel. Jameis Winston and the entire offensive unit seemed decided to audible out and call a rushing play, which, by the way, terrible look for Dennis Allen. That means that head coach does not have that locker room. That was my first reaction to that. And secondly, Arthur Smith, rightfully so, knowing he probably knew that this was probably going to be it for him. He comes in cussing at Dennis Allen, probably rightfully so. I mean, this is the NFL. You got to be professional about it. It was I was not a fan of this at all. As much as I'm not a fan of Arthur Smith, he was in the right on this one. You don't do this in the NFL. You have class, and they rush it in. They're fired up about it. Dennis sounds like, I'm sorry, I called for a kneel. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. One, that tells me Dennis Allen does not have control over that Saints locker room if they're going against a play call from a coach in that situation. And secondly, I feel for Arthur Smith and the Falcons. That's a tough way to go out as a head coach. He handled it as well as he could have, but it's getting a lot of controversy in the media world right now, and rightfully so, because this just should not happen at the highest level of professional football.
Yeah, to me, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the big story for me in this was it was a victory formation. You come out in a
Yeah.
victory formation and you run a fake kneel and you rush the ball in with Jamal Williams just to get him one touchdown on the season. Like I said, every reason possible, Arthur Smith has every right to be mad. I mean, that is unprofessional. I know you could say what you will about oh, it's the National Football League. There's no
Stop
time
him, like,
for
yeah,
just
stop it.
stop him.
Yeah.
The announcer on the game that called that I didn't like that at all. The color, I don't know who it was, but the color commentator was like, "Well, it's the National Football League. Just stop them." Like so many teams this year have opportunities to break records. I mean, the Dolphins included had an opportunity to break a record like that, and they didn't do it. They took the knee. It's respect. These coaches have so much. There's a type of coaching respect that these guys all want to warn each other, and Dennis Allen went against that completely, and that's all it is.
Well, he didn't go against. He called for a kneel. It was the
Well,
players.
okay, but my problem is that he's gotta be able to stick up and say, "I messed up," or and punish these guys, suspend them, fine them. He's gotta be able to take action and say, Even if I did my job and my players didn't listen, I've gotta stick up for that head coach." He didn't even listen to Arthur Smith. He kinda moved on and said, "Yeah," what did he say? He was like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, he was like, "I get it." But, like, he didn't even really give him the time of day. Like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it out of Dennis Allen. Even if he didn't call the play, I didn't like it.
All fair points. All fair points. Another quick headline here. Me and Ben, we're both big UFC fans, and Conor McGregor. I mean, he's the face of the sport, even though he's on a decline, but he's still, by all things clear, the face of the UFC. He announced his return to the octagon. He'll be fighting Michael Chandler this summer. I'm a huge Michael Chandler fan. These are two guys that are in desperate need of a win. Ben, real quick, I mean, it's good for the sport whenever McGregor's fighting. Just the amount of attention he brings.
Yeah, I kind of have a differing opinion on this than the most people. I just don't like McGregor coming back, especially to fight at 185. To me, it seems like stuff is
I
kind of
know.
it seems I don't know. I don't like how this whole thing's being ran out. Like I think there's a lot of suspicion still on McGregor's how legit is this body transformation? How legit is any of this? He looks so much different than he used to. A lot of question marks. A lot of this just seems like a money ploy for McGregor, but I'm excited to watch it. I mean, obviously it's McGregor, so everyone's gonna watch, no doubt about it. It's just I don't know, a lot of question marks for me. I'm more excited for the UFC 300 card, which we will talk about probably eventually when the whole card is announced. But so far, the UFC 300 matchups look incredible. I'm not like I said, we're both pretty big USC guys. We're not really a one I talk about a lot on here, if at all. But yeah, I'm
I think
excited.
that's so. I don't know about. We'll see what the people think, obviously. But I think once football ends, I think that'd be a good thing to talk about more. I love talking UFC. I think it's a great up and coming sport. Lots of action. It's good. And yeah, the 300 card, it looks absolutely great. We're still waiting for the kind of the rest of the card to be filled out. But hey, we'll have more UFC content. The bottom line, we'll keep things rolling. Draymond Green, he returned. We talked about Draymond Green a few weeks back when the whole incident happened. He came back, which is good time for the Warriors because they desperately need him back right now. They're really struggling. Chris Paul goes off an injury, so they need all the help they can get. For Draymond Green, though, I mean, you gotta imagine this is really his last chance to prove himself. I think if something else happens, that might be it.
It's gotta be. To me, the big story here was the comments, the whole drama that happened with him and Stephen A. that was kind of the big story for me is in when Draymond goes down, there was the comments about Stephen A questioning Steph Curry's leadership, which I still think is crazy that you would that any of this would be Curry's fault. Like
Yeah,
we've
what?
seen Steph Curry be a great leader multiple times, and Draymond went on his podcast and said that he felt devastated for Steph, that he even had that his actions would cause someone to question his leadership, and Draymond
And then
kinda
he told Adam Silver something about retiring. I mean, it's crazy.
exactly. So that's a crazy statement. I think Draymond's still got a lot left in the tank. I don't mind him being a physical player, kind of that glue guy thing, but he has to learn the limits. And I know a lot of it is for the sport, and we've seen guys like him do it. You know, your Pat Beverleys of the world, your what's the other guy that used to do it for the Sixers? But there's guys in the game that just they're kind of tough guys that just kind of every team has one, but you got to learn your limits. You got to know when to stop, and he never
Pat Bev.
has.
Pat Bev is who you're thinking of for the Sixers.
Yeah, but there was another one, Dudley, the guy who used to mess with the Sixers on the Nets. There's a guy,
Oh, Jared Dudley. Yes.
Jared Dudley was one of those guys too that just always seemed to like get in people's heads. Was just kind of like just an annoying guy to play against. But yeah, you never know with some of these guys. But Draymond's got to get it back together. But I'm excited to see him prove some people wrong.
And the last one, this was really shocking. I'm a big golf guy personally, and Tiger Woods announced that he's leaving Nike. He's joined TaylorMade Sports, which is a huge story just in terms of Nike as a company. This is a huge loss. They're going to lose millions of dollars in their golf program over this because he was really Tiger Woods was the guy that founded and upstarted Nike in terms of the golf world.
Yeah.
This was a huge loss for Nike, and we're starting to see a pattern here of Nike losing athletes, kind of not going down the right track here. This was a big loss, Ben. Real quick, what was just your reaction to this? And we're going to go into the wild card round.
I mean, just like you said, kind of a big loss for Nike. I don't blame Tiger. I mean, TaylorMade is a good company still, and they probably gave him a good hefty sum of money, and
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
and their relationship with Nike's been kind of rocky ever since the whole, the stuff happened with him after all the DUI and stuff like that. So it's kind of always been shaky. But yeah, props to Tiger for a good run at Nike. Props to Nike for a good run with Tiger as well. I mean, just a mutual parting of ways. I don't know if it's as big of a story as people are making out to be. I mean, it's not
No, both
necessarily normal
both
for
sides are
guys to
handling it
stay
well,
with
though.
company.
Both sides handled it well. Tiger put out a statement wishing his respect and appreciates everything Nike did for him. Nike did the same thing, so they're
Yeah.
leaving on good waters, which is a good sign. Just we see things happen
Just
all
the
the time. Just a mutual parting, like you said.
Yeah, just both time. I mean, it's just time. They just both felt like it.
Alrighty, Ben. Ever since we established the bottom line, this is the stuff we were looking forward to.
Oh yeah.
NFL wild card round. We have all the slates of games above us. Obviously, Baltimore, San Francisco earned the number one seeds. I guess we can just go in order of just AFC, NFC.
Before
Go,
before
go
we
ahead.
put anything out here, these matchups make me wonder if the NFL is scripted at times. These matchups
Okay,
are
yeah.
unbelievable.
Let's just go in order here. Cleveland, Houston, the Deshaun Watson trade is the story there. Miami,
Yeah.
Kansas City, the Tyreek Hill storyline. You have Rams, Detroit with Matthew Stafford returning. Green Bay, Dallas. I mean, that was the
Mike
last.
McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy. There's a story for every single game here, except I think Eagles, Bucks, and Bills, Pittsburgh are the two exceptions, but still 4 out of the 6 having a huge storyline like that. What?
Yeah. Yeah. And then not to
That's
mention the two stories with the top end teams, like you got the matchup for the former Super Bowl matchup. The logo
the
curse is still in
logo
effect. Is
conspiracy.
still
Yeah.
is still in effect. Everything's going right. But yeah, let's go in order and really break all these down.
So Cleveland, Houston. This is, I think, for me, the biggest coin flipper of them all. I think all these games can go either way, but I think this one especially is just so hard to predict. You have, and by the way, before we go over our picks, before every week we knew who me and Ben were picking before we recorded the show. We have no idea
Yeah, I
what
haven't I
reports.
haven't heard anything. This is fun.
So we're going to be reacting live to each other as well. But so Cleveland, Houston, the home team in this one. I believe the spread is. I have the spread pulled up here. Just give me
Cleveland's
1 second.
favored. I know that.
Yeah, 2.5. Cleveland's favored 2.5, and Cleveland they've been hot. Obviously last week they rested their guys, so don't worry about that. But when Flacco's been in control, this offense has been top 5 offense in the NFL type of stuff. It's crazy. So before we give our predictions, Ben, what are your thoughts on the matchup? What do you think about this one? This is really a coin flipper for me.
Yeah, this is a good matchup. I think the big storyline here is CJ Stroud has to perform because if he doesn't, this Cleveland defense will give him nightmares. And it really becomes down to the offense on both sides, honestly, because the same can be said about Flacco. Flacco's got to come out and respond here. This has got to be a good, solid game out of Joe Flacco, like we've seen out of him so far. It maybe doesn't have to be Flacco mania as you call it, but it's got to be solid. You can't turn the ball over. You got to play playoff football, and Joe Flacco is no stranger to playoff football. This will be CJ Stroud's first big test. We'll see what he's got. I mean, this is a fun matchup. I'm excited to watch this game.
Yeah, all that being said, I'm rocking with the Cleveland Browns in this one. I think just as Houston Texans team, this Brown team has a lot of veteran presence. Obviously, with Flacco there, the Ravens got a sniff with the playoffs. I feel like, but this is still a very young team, and just historically, young teams typically need some time to develop to have postseason success. And this Browns offense is just clicking on all cylinders. It's just hard for me to pick against the Browns given how they've been playing in the recent weeks. I'll take the Browns close. I think this is a one-score game pretty much throughout the entire game.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be super close, but I'm going to give the Browns the slight edge just based off more championship DNA. Like you said, a lot of times you see these young teams make the playoffs and you see them put on a good fight and they just like I said last week, it just seems like they're not just there yet. And that's what it's going to come down to is like you're going to probably see them put up a good performance, but it's just going to be they're just not experienced in the playoffs. I mean, it is what it is, and you're happy with the competitive game here. Probably as a Houston fan, you'd probably like to see them win it because you're at home and you're the higher seed, all that. But to me, this Cleveland team is still really good. I mean, this is a really, really good Cleveland team that would have been the 2 seed in the AFC if it wasn't for divisional, barring divisional wise. This is a really good Cleveland team.
Next up, so we're both rocking with the Browns on that one. Next up, I'll let you break this one down. It's Dolphins Chiefs. Chiefs a 4.5 point favorite at home. So that's
No
a little bit.
shocker. Nah, that makes sense.
And I'll let you break down the matchup here because you're gonna have a lot more intel than I will. The only thing I gotta say is, why is this on Peacock? What are we doing? What are we doing? This game's exclusively on Peacock.
Well, good
That's
news is I have Peacock. I don't know if you have Peacock.
I might have to. I believe my
I'll give
mom.
you my Peacock if you need it.
My mom has Peacock, so we're gonna be
Okay.
hopefully Peacock's not watching this, but we might do a little password switch. Everyone does it, but all that being said, this game's on Peacock. So if you didn't know, make sure you start a free trial or something, or stream it if you want to go that route. But I'm not saying I condone that on bottom line. Wink, wink. Um, but Ben, break this down. Dolphins Chiefs, very interesting matchup. The weather will be a factor in this one, 100%.
Yeah, so this is the Tyreek Hill homecoming game, but it's funny because the homecoming game will be in negative-degree weather, and I would imagine you probably see both quarterbacks throw less than 30 passes in this game. A lot of running the ball, which makes me feel better, honestly, about the matchup that the weather is like this. I know usually you would say the Dolphins aren't used to that cold weather, but the one thing the cold weather does do is you favor the run game, and if there's two things the Dolphins have consistently throughout bad losses, all this stuff, injuries and all that, the two things they've been good at have been running the ball and stopping the run. And so you probably favor the matchup. To me, I just think this Kansas City team is too playoff DNA on them. They're going to find a way. Arrowhead will still be packed no matter if it's a blizzard and everyone's going to be in ice sculptures. It'll still be packed no matter what. And I think KC will find a way, but I do think this game's going to be competitive no matter what.
You're picking the Chiefs?
Dog, it's the playoffs. I'm not look, listen.
Oh, come on.
Do you
Come
do you
on.
disagree with my analysis?
No, I think the Chiefs are gonna win, but man, I thought for sure you'd be picking the Dolphins. I am shocked.
Listen,
Oh,
I am no
dude, Matt's
stranger
gonna
as
be a
much.
Matt. I'm waiting for the Matt comment. He's not gonna appreciate that.
I don't think he expects them to win either. But the point is that as much as I love my Dolphins more than anything, I mean, I love those Miami Dolphins. You know that better than anyone.
Mhm.
The facts are the facts. This is just not a favorable matchup. That's why that game meant so much. That's why winning the division meant so much. Is you would have been going on at home against either Pittsburgh or Buffalo, depending on how that Tennessee game went. If you would have won the Tennessee game, you'd be playing at home against Pittsburgh right now. And that's why it was so important. But now you're playing against KC on the road, a team that their worst season when Patrick Mahomes been at the quarterback was an AFC championship loss. That's their worst season they've had. I just don't, unless this Chiefs team is different, and we've seen the cracks. This Chiefs team is different. They've got to show it. They've got to prove it yet. I mean, I see a way for them to win this game. I do. I see the vision. Just I don't know if it's going to come to fruition. Would love to see it come to fruition, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, so I'm rocking with the Chiefs as well. My thing is, you talk about how they have to run the football. If single digit temperatures or even negative feel like temperature is not enough for Mike McDaniel's to just stick to a running game plan for 4 quarters, then he's a goner. Or not in
He's
terms of getting
psycho.
not in terms of getting fired, but he's a goner in terms of he's just going to be stubborn no matter what. If these elements are not enough for him to just through and through just run the ball, then I don't know what needs to be said. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Dolphins' injuries are just going to catch up to them. I think if they're healthy, I think I might probably favor the Dolphins, but they just lost too many guys.
Thanks
And
for reminding me. Thanks.
you can get me back here in a little bit with the with the Eagles Bucks, but just with the injuries with the Dolphins are facing, and it's just so hard for me to pick against Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead in a playoff game until he proves me otherwise. So we're both rock with the Chiefs. I just can't believe that, Ben. I think I guess the easiest to predict game of the weekend, although it wouldn't shock me if the Steelers win, but it's Pittsburgh
No,
at.
stop it. No, don't you dare.
Hey,
Don't you
it'd be the most
No.
Steelers thing ever and
No, no,
Buffalo thing
no.
ever.
I'm not doing it. I don't even want to talk about it. Please, please. I'm begging you. I'm not going to get close to this mic, but I'm begging you, beat the Steelers. That there is
You're
this
rooting. Wow, Ben
team.
is like on the edge of his seat rooting for the
I
Buffalo
cannot
Bills.
stand the Steelers team. Please beat them. They stink. They are
This is a
terrible.
10-point spread for a playoff game. You never
Good.
see
Make
that.
it 40. Make it a 40-point spread.
40-point spread. I'm rocking with the Bills. There is just no reason the Steelers should win this game. That's why the Steelers will win this game. No, I'm just kidding. I'm rocking with the Bills. I'm rocking with the Bills. They should
You
win
better.
this, but oh man, I'm rooting for the Steelers though. I'm not gonna lie. I'm rooting for the Steelers.
Part of
Next
me
up,
is rooting for the Steelers because of the Bills. You
mhm.
know, I will say this. If the Steelers were to win and somehow the Dolphins would beat KC, the Dolphins would play the winner of Cleveland and Houston, and then all of a sudden you're in a good spot to maybe make a run in the playoffs. So you never know. I will be rooting for the Steelers, but part of me deep down is like, "Oh God, please no." But for the Dolphins' sake, beat the Bills, and then the Dolphins beat the KC, and then we'll play against Cleveland or Houston. Boom, go. There we go. Vision is there. I got the vision.
Next up, we got the Eagles versus the Bucks. Eagles somehow a favorite. I understand why they are, but I just don't like that they are. They're 1.5 point favorites. So it's essentially a pick 'em. But this was okay. So I said my negative thing about the Eagles. That's why I was saving this. Despite everything that's happened in terms of the matchup, this was the best case scenario for the Eagles in terms of who they are playing. Because if they're playing Rams, Rams or Green Bay, that's a way harder matchup than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So all things considered, if you're looking for a playoff matchup against a team when you're struggling this much, this was the best possible outcome. That's like the only positive about what happened here with the Eagles is that they got the easiest matchup out of all these teams, maybe outside of Pittsburgh. But even you can make an argument that no, I'm gonna say Pittsburgh's an easier matchup. But in terms of the NFC side, easiest matchup you could have gotten. I'm going to pick the Eagles, but here's what I have to say about this. Any outcome of this game won't shock me. Tampa Bay close victory, Tampa Bay blowout, Eagles close win. None of those four outcomes would shock me. It's almost like I'm at like the magic show and they're going to pull a name out of the hat of which Eagles team is going to show up. It's going to be the Eagles of the past 4 weeks or it's going to be the Eagles of the beginning of the year. And that's going to determine if they win this game. If the Eagles play their brand of football, they win this easily. If the Eagles play their brand of football the past 4 weeks, which they can't seem to break out of, they're going to lose this game. I'm not going to be. I won't be shocked if they lose this game. I'm going to pick the Eagles because I know they can do it. But if you're going to pick the Bucks, or if the Bucks end up winning it, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So I'm going to rock with the Eagles, even on the road. Thank gosh they're going against the Bucks. If they're going against any other team, I'd probably pick them to lose. Or I wouldn't pick them to lose, but I'd probably expect them to lose.
Well, we're 4 for 4 on picks. I'm gonna take the Eagles as well. To me, the difference here is championship caliber, DNA. I mean, they've been here before. They've done it. I just think this Eagles team is more prepared for these type of moments than this Tampa team. A lot of young, especially for Baker Mayfield, hasn't really been in the playoffs that much, hasn't had deep playoff runs. He doesn't know what it takes to really win in the playoffs like that. He's only won one playoff game in his career. Give me the Eagles by a close, close margin, but give me the Eagles.
I like it. I like it. Rams at Detroit is the next game. I think this is the best storyline of all the games. With Matthew Stafford returning to face his team who's playing their first playoff. It's beautiful. Lions are a 3-point favorite at home. Their first playoff game in a long, long time. And Ben, this is my upset of the week. Give me the Los Angeles Rams to break the Detroit Lions' hearts.
You know,
Matthew
I thought
Stafford.
about it. I
Matthew
really did think about
Stafford
it.
I don't know if this is a hot take or not. In my opinion, Matthew Stafford's the best current playoff quarterback in the NFC. In my opinion, he has in terms of experience, he knows what it's like in terms of playoff success. He's been there. I think
Running down
overall,
the list, it's not a terrible take.
he's the best quarterback in the NFC. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the sum with the Lions, it's going to be heartbreak. It just always is with the Lions. I'm taking the Rams. That's my every year is always a shocking upset. This is it. The Rams are going to beat the Lions.
Yeah, to me, the two shocking upsets we're gonna well, there's three that are in contention for me. It's the Detroit game, which I thought about. I'm gonna take the Lions, but it's that the Dolphins or the Steelers, and that's those are the three teams that I think have a really
I
chance
don't
of making a.
think Dolphins being Chiefs would be shocking. I think Packers beating
Really?
Dallas would be more shocking.
I don't see that happening though. But anyways, I'm gonna take the Lions. I think this Lions team is different, but like you said, this has written all over it. This is such a stereotypical upset that you could see coming. I'm gonna take the Lions. I just like I said, this Dan Campbell Lions team feels different to me. I'm gonna take them though. I think
I'm
Matthew Stafford's gonna give them the kitchen sink for sure, but I think the Lions are gonna have enough answers.
I'm rooting for the Lions. I do want to preface that by I'm picking the Rams. And the last one, Green Bay at Dallas. Ben, I was really thinking about it. I really was. And another phone call during the show. I never get this is on the house phone. This never happens. It's only when we're recording. It's so bizarre. My apologies, but
It's okay.
I was seriously considering picking the Packers.
Yeah.
But it's a home game. I'm gonna rock with Dallas. If this game was in Green Bay, I'm probably picking the Packers. But it's in Dallas. They are the home team. They have no reason to lose this game. They have a complete arsenal from top
How
to
many
bottom.
times has a 7 seed beaten a has it happened yet? Has a 7 seed has a 7
I
seed won
can
a playoff game?
I can Google it real quick. Colin, we'll do a live
No,
reaction.
I haven't. So no 7 seed has won a playoff game yet. They're 0-6.
0-6. It's never happened. I really want to pick Green Bay, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pick Dallas, but I do think it's going to be really close. I expect this to be a close game. I think this will get scary for Dallas fans personally.
I don't think so. I actually think this is what I think. I think this is the stereotypical Dallas wins a playoff game by a large margin, feels really confident, and then walks into next week with whoever they play, barring what either Detroit or whoever. If the Rams win, they'd play Philly or Tampa Bay, and then just get steamrolled. I think they're gonna win this one, and then if they end up playing someone next week that's of good caliber, they'll probably get steamrolled. I
So we're
just
both
think.
rocking Dallas. We only disagree on one game. Sorry for not keeping not, not a lot of bragging rights next week.
Yeah, the big one's gonna be the Detroit one. I just have so much faith in that Detroit team. I mean, deep down, I do have confidence in my Dolphins, but I'm being realistic with myself.
I mean, there's a lot to watch. I'm excited. I think we've been teasing. I think we're going to do at least like one reaction special next week to one of these games, even if it's just like a
Yeah, if we
5 minute
could find
thing.
some
Let's
time in
let's
the schedule.
let's put our word on it now on Karis. That way we feel entitled to do it. We will do at least one. We have to.
I
Let's just
hope
put
we can
set it in
find
stone.
time.
We'll find time. We can find 5 minutes.
Okay.
There's no excuse not to.
Okay. All right.
But that being said, that's going to conclude this episode for the bottom line. Again, if you're still here, thanks for watching the whole video, by the way. And
Yeah.
we're gonna be launching maybe the day you're seeing this. Bottom line, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter/X. The links, I'll make sure if we make those, the links will be in the description below. If they're not there, that means we're still making them, and they'll definitely be ready by the time the next video is up. But I think all things considered, they should be up today. Those links will be in the description below. Ben, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
Not really. let's hope for a good weekend of playoff football. I hope not a lot of blowouts. I mean, I think everyone just enjoys close playoff games, so I'm hoping for
I
some
don't expect
close
a lot of blowouts,
games.
to be honest. I really don't.
Um, yeah, I've been enjoying watching some basketball recently. My Clippers and my Seton
Yeah,
Hall
they're playing
Pirates
good.
in college have both been playing well. So it's been fun watching some basketball, but other than that, just, football is football. So despite the heartbreaks, despite me being angry at this Dolphins team, I will wake up on Saturday, and as soon as Saturday opens, I'm throwing on my jersey and I'll be excited. So that should tell
Hey,
you the entire story of how football is. So,
I got my Devontae Smith jersey just ready. It's on the chair. It's on the chair.
yeah.
We're waiting to be thrown on. So that's gonna do it for the bottom line. We'll see what happens next week. Will the Dolphins still be in? Will the Eagles still be in it? What's gonna happen? Only time.
Hopefully, for our sake, hopefully one of our teams is still in it. That's
Hopefully,
all I say.
just for the sake of content, hopefully they
Hopefully
both make
both.
it.
Let's
I want
Yeah,
that
there we
Eagles
go. How
Dolphins
about
Super
it?
Bowl. Give it to me. Give me that Eagles Dolphins Super Bowl. That'd be, oh man. Oh, I'm not gonna get
That looked a
excited.
lot more realistic about 10 weeks ago, but now it's the
Yeah.
most unrealistic thing possible.
That's gonna do it for the bottom line. He's Ben Willey. I'm Jay Dorazio. We'll catch you very soon here on YouTube and on Instagram and on TikTok and on Twitter. One last shameless plug out of the way. We're gonna sign off. We'll see y'all very soon.
See you guys.